Well, we can add Brusdar Graterol's name to the list of Dodger players who were apparently playing injured in October, putting it all on line to win the World Series. We'll dig into that, plus some minor league talk as the Rule 5 protection deadline approaches. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fellow champions. This is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We cover the Los Angeles Dodgers, or should we say the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. We should say that, and we will until it's no longer true. Thank you for being an everydayer if you are, and thanks for being live with me here on Sunday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. My normal co-host is Vince Semperio, although it's just me tonight. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And with that out of the way, welcome. Happy to be back with you all. Thanks to Vince for holding it down for me for Friday's episode. Sorry we didn't have a live episode on Thursday night between Vince's day job and me getting ready for my wife's grandma's funeral. We just, live episode wasn't in the cards. That'll happen. Sometimes this offseason we are still going to try to go live as often as possible, much to Dirk Diggler's chagrin. Oh, this is live. I can't skip all the ads and self-promotion. No, you can't, Dirk, but thanks for being here anyway. Shout out to all you here with us. Interesting news on Friday. We found out that Brusdar Graterol has been, we knew he was hurt a couple times during the year. Didn't realize he was still hurt during the postseason. And he had shoulder surgery. Seems like similar to Shohei Ohtani's shoulder surgery. The big difference is we don't know the extent of injury on either one. So I don't, I'm sure not all labrum repairs are identical. So that's part of it. And also, Brusdar Graterol, it was on his pitching shoulder. And for Ohtani, it was on his non-throwing shoulder and not his lead shoulder on his swing. So Ohtani is expected to be ready at least to hit on opening day. I'm interested to see if how the shoulder surgery impacts his pitching rehab, because even though it's not his pitching shoulder, he can't, you use your whole body to pitch. And so I wonder if Ohtani, it seems like the assumption among a lot of fans is that Ohtani won't be ready to pitch on opening day. And I think that's probably a reasonable assumption. I don't know if we've heard anything for sure about that, but Graderol, we do know he won't be around until the second half of next year. And I'm just looking, he didn't pitch in the NLDS or the NLCS against the Padres and Mets. He did pitch 3 times against the Yankees in 5 games, 2 1/3 innings, allowed 1 run. And the big thing was he walked several guys. You remember that game when Graderol just didn't seem to have it. Was that game 5? I'm trying to, all of these games run together in my mind now. Let's see. Yeah, game 5, when the Dodgers ended up winning that game. But even after they had the big comeback, it was like, can some relief pitcher please give us a clean inning? And it just wasn't happening. And Graterol's was rough. He pitched 2/3 of an inning and walked 3 guys. And he allowed the 1 run, the sacrifice fly to Giancarlo Stanton. And it's not like I sat there thinking, oh, Graderol must be hurt and that's why he can't throw strikes right now. But it's not at all surprising to discover that he was playing hurt. And the fact that he was able to contribute at all when he was injured is pretty impressive. We knew that, found out after the fact that Shohei Ohtani was hurt more than they let on a little bit. Freddie Freeman was hurt way worse than they let on in ways that we hadn't even heard about until after the fact. Adding Brusdar Graterol to that list, it just makes it's not like it's more impressive that the Dodgers won the World Series, but like we spend a lot of time during the regular season fans getting mad that the players just, they look like they don't even care. And I always tell people, I promise you, they care even more than you do. Like it is as important as it is to us as fans for the Dodgers to win the World Series. Because let's face it, we're all world champions. That's what Daniel Hudson told us. It's even more important to the guys who are actually there, who actually get the rings, who actually get, even if they're just in it for the money, you get a huge postseason bonus. There you get all of the accolades, all of that. It is even more important to them than it is to us for different reasons, obviously. And yeah, like I will care more 5 years from now about the Dodgers than guys on the 2024 Dodgers might, who are no longer on the Dodgers in 5 years. But in the moment, they care at least as much as we do. And I think what all these guys just putting their bodies on the line shows is exactly that to win a World Series title is a big deal for these people. And for them to go out there, and Brusdar Graterol knew who are the alternatives. Edgardo Enriquez, he's not ready. He's not going to contribute. Graderol knew that even injured, he could be a better contributor than the alternative. And so he put it on the line and he went for it. And I don't want to feed too much into the, I like it at a professional baseball level. I'll put it that way. I think that too often that trickles down to amateur sports. And, I think we had my 13-year-old son playing 14U at a tournament last week. And we had a kid on the other team who threw 110 pitches against us at age, 13, 14 years old. And because, their team had never beat a team from the academy my son plays at. They've got like 4 teams at our age and they've lost to all of them. And they were like, he's our one good pitcher. We're just going to throw him. And he pitched really well, 110 pitches, complete game loss, unfortunately for him. And who knows? Like, I think it's crazy to put it all on the line for a 14U tournament. I think it's crazy to put it all on the line for high school, even for college. But in the professionals where you are getting paid and you are getting paid well, and there is direct financial compensation for you, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about risking future health. And so Brusdar Graterol, who knows? Maybe he will come back late next season and be as dominant as we've seen him be in the past, and it'll all be good and it'll totally be worth it. There's a chance that he might not be the same, and he will have this World Series title and the money that came with it and all of that, the memories. And that's a choice that I'm fine with a professional making. Freddie Freeman, like we talked about, who knows? I hope that Freddie heals completely. And I've also even thought maybe Freddie just realizing that swing tweak he had to make to compensate for the rib injury, it might be something that he implements more, and we might see him more of a pull hitter in the coming years than he's been, or at least having that in his toolbox might not be a good thing, but it also might shorten his career or limit his effectiveness the rest of his career. That's okay. I'm okay with Freddie Freeman making that decision because it's his job and there's financial compensation. So I guess that's a long way of saying I don't want this to trickle down to, 12-year-old kids feeling like they have to battle through injury to be as tough as Freddie Freeman and Brusdar Graterol. But I love that Freddie Freeman and Brusdar Graterol battled through, and Shohei Ohtani, that they battled through to help the Dodgers win a World Series title. And now there was no guarantee the Dodgers were going to win the World Series. I'm glad they did. I don't know if it would have been worth it to these guys if we had Nestor Cortez, who before the World Series started was quoted as saying, if I can win a World Series title, but then I have to miss a year because I have to have surgery, that's a trade that's worth making for me. I don't know if Nestor Cortez is going to have surgery. And if he does, I don't know if it will be worth it to him to have pitched and lost in the World Series and give up one of the most iconic home runs in World Series history. I don't know. But those are decisions that these guys made. And Noah says, I blend in with the bobbleheads with my white shirt and my blue hat. Yeah, this is my Sunday afternoon shirt. I come home from church and put on this piece of garbage shirt that the neck is all loose and everything. And I really ought to dress up better for this podcast. But you know what? We're late nighters together. So anyway, Brusdar Graterol having surgery will miss the first half of next season. And I think it's pretty awesome that these players went for it the way they did. I'm going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about guys who haven't made the big bucks yet, guys who are there were a lot of roster moves on the fringes of the Dodgers roster that we're going to dig into, and then later we'll talk about the upcoming Rule 5 draft and guys who need to be protected for that. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And just looking at the FanDuel odds for Monday Night Football, looks like we've got the Texans and the Cowboys, the old Texas showdown. And the Texans are major favorites, probably having at least something to do with the Cowboys not having their quarterback anymore and all of that. Texans are minus 375 favorites. Guess what? Put your $5 on that, your first bet. You win that bet, and then you get your $150 in bonus bets. When you're talking about these bonus bets, those things that seem like easy bets are definitely the way to go. And all you got to do is just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I am back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks for being an everydayer. If you're not, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can also go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. I actually found out the Brusdar Graterol news the other day through our insider group because I was at a funeral and I got a text because Vince hopped on the insider group and messaged out to our insiders the news about Brusdar Graterol. So me and my two sons all got the funeral was over. We were at the lunch after the funeral with the family. So it wasn't too inappropriate that we all got the text message at the same time. But that's the kind of thing that you can do as a Locked On Dodgers insider. We will keep you up to date on the news that you need to know if you aren't tied to social media, living that blissful life. Also, for your second listen, be sure to check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. Remember to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels over on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. And there were a lot of roster moves recently. Some of them were actually a couple of weeks ago when the season ended, and we just kind of hadn't talked about them yet. They weren't a big deal. Minor league free agency is an interesting thing. Guys who have been, you were kind of talking about the two ways that guys leave organizations from the minor leagues is minor league free agency and the Rule 5 draft. We're going to talk about both of those in the next two segments. But minor league free agency is for guys who have a certain amount of service time at the end of a season. If they aren't on the 40-man roster, they can elect free agency. And 17 guys in the Dodgers system elected free agency back on November 4th. A couple of them already signed. I saw Juan Murillo is signed with the D-backs. I saw, who was it? Tanner Dodson, I think, has signed with the A's. Tanner Dodson was kind of an interesting one. He's the guy who the Dodgers got from the Rays when they traded Luke Raley. He was a two-way player. We thought there might be some possibility there. He ended up not amounting to much, but he signed with the A's. I mean, kind of a lot of these guys are just guys who have been around, been in the big leagues at times and just now kicking around the minor leagues. Guys like Alan Trejo and Chris Oakey and John Duplantier and Jordan Lyles. Those guys are all veterans and not their first time being minor league free agents. And then there's guys who actually prospect-y or prospect-ish at least. You've got Drew Avans, who, there was a lot of push by a lot of people this year to call him up when the Dodgers were struggling in center field. Drew Avans had a solid year in Oklahoma City. I think it's not surprising necessarily that he never did make it to the big leagues because he's already 28 and a half years old. He's not young, and he's never made it past AAA. In fact, he's played the last 4 years at Oklahoma City, and he's been actually a little worse each year, basically, looks like. OPS-wise, he's got speed. He's stolen about 45, 50 bases a year in AAA, decent success rate. but his OPSs are all high 700s, low 800s, which is solid. But in a hitters league like the Pacific Coast League, it's not that great. So Drew Avans was always going to be at best like a fourth outfielder type in the big leagues. Hopefully he will get a chance with somebody. I'm not seeing. Yeah, he's still listed on Baseball Reference as being with the Dodgers, so he hasn't signed somewhere else, but he is a free agent now. And that's, I'm happy for him. Really the only ones that kind of caused me any consternation, there's a guy named Siren Lowe who used to be a third baseman, and then the Dodgers converted him in the minor leagues to pitching. Throws really hard, but he never really kind of figured out. I've got his page open somewhere here. Like this year, he had a 1.90 ERA in AA in 23 2/3 innings. Like, oh, this guy might be figuring it out. And then he went to AAA, and his strikeout rate plummeted, and his walk rate and hit rate both skyrocketed. And so after a 1.90 ERA in AA, he had a 5.22 ERA in AAA. Doesn't necessarily mean that's who he is, that he's that bad, but it's not that surprising, I guess, that because the alternative, the way for the Dodgers to not lose him to free agency would be either talk him into not electing free agency or put him on the 40-man roster. And the 40-man roster wasn't going to happen for him at this point. He's not ready for that. But I suspect he will get picked up by somebody because he does throw. He throws hard. He shows a lot of promise and has the tools, and he's still pretty young. He just turned 25. And when you talk about he didn't become a pitcher until 2023. And so the mileage on the arm is low. He's only thrown a total of 110 innings in the minors. All in all, he's a guy who I don't really think the Dodgers will end up regretting losing him, but he's a guy who I think will probably end up as a big league pitcher, a relief pitcher for some team in the big leagues. And we will think back to the time he used to be a Dodgers minor leaguer. The other, that's like Alan Trejo was one who Dodgers signed him to a minor league contract mid-season last year. And he was basically just minor league depth. A lot of these guys, John Duplantier had he threw a partial perfect game and got pulled out early. But that's, he's been in the big leagues. He used to be a top prospect with the D-backs, but has never really put it together. Christian Santana, I think this was his second stint in the Dodgers. Second time he's become a Dodgers minor league free agent, I think. Definitely second time he's left the organization. Donovan Casey, I remember watching him with the Quakes in Rancho Cucamonga a few years back, just hasn't quite put it together. So overall, 17 guys who – John Rooney is the other one that I wanted to mention. Rooney was interesting. He's one that I've been excited about at times. He's a left-handed pitcher and has had some solid seasons in the minor leagues. Again, like last year, he had a 2.38 ERA in Tulsa and then a 3.31 ERA in Oklahoma City. But then this year it was 4.33 in Oklahoma City, and strikeout rate was higher, but the walk rate was almost double, and just didn't quite. The hit rate went up. All in all, he just had a down year. He's one that I wouldn't be surprised if the Dodgers do try to re-sign him to another minor league deal. But he may want to go somewhere where he thinks he has a better chance of making the big leagues. He's almost 28 years old again. So, when you come out of college, he was drafted by the Dodgers in 2018 out of college. And so John Rooney is one that I had been excited about at times, but, not surprised, I guess, that he is a free agent now. None of that stuff affects the 40-man roster because these are, by definition, minor leaguers who aren't on the 40-man roster. That's why they were eligible to become minor league free agents. There was some movement on the 40-man roster, too, that we will talk about when we come back, and then we'll talk about the Rule 5 draft protection deadline that is coming up on Tuesday, because that will also have implications on the 40-man roster. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. I love sports. I love concerts. I love comedy shows. The thing they all have in common is buying tickets. And that means the other thing they have in common is you can find the best price on Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You also have the option of turning on all-in pricing, which will show you the total prices up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And with Game Time Guarantee, you'll always get the lowest price, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets to your favorite events with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. I am back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being here with me live on Sunday night. Thanks for being a Locked On Dodgers insider if you are. If you're not, just go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Just a few bucks a month, free 14-day trial, and it's a lot of fun. One-on-one text conversations. Get the news as it's happening. As we find out, we will send it out so you don't have to be tied to social media all day. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube. So the Rule 5 protection deadline is coming up on Tuesday. I'm going to give you a brief overview. I'm not going to belabor the point, but of what the Rule 5 draft is. Basically, once you've been in a minor league system for a certain amount of time, if you're not on the 40-man roster yet, you are eligible to be taken by another team in the Rule 5 draft. And that time is if you're drafted out of high school or signed as an international free agent, it's 5 years. If you are drafted out of college, it's 4 years. And then you are eligible for the Rule 5 draft. And the way that a team can protect you from being taken in the Rule 5 draft is by adding you to the 40-man roster. It's kind of an interesting situation. Very few, I guess I'll go to the other part of the Rule 5 draft. A player who is taken in the Rule 5 draft, the team that takes him has to put him on their big league roster, and he has to stay there all year long or on the big league injured list if he gets hurt. But they cannot send him to the minors for the whole next season, or else they have to send him back. We had that with Gus Varland a couple years ago. The Brewers took Gus Varland in the Rule 5 draft. He debuted for them, actually pitched really well, and then had a terrible game against, I think, the Cardinals, gave up 13 runs in an inning or something like that. The Brewers wanted to send him to the minors, so they had to offer him back to the Dodgers. The Dodgers took him back. He ended up pitching for the Dodgers. Now he's no longer in the Dodgers organization, but guys like Gus Varland are the guys who are most often taken in the Rule 5 draft. It's very rare for a guy to be taken in the Rule 5 draft and actually make a huge impact. I think Johan Santana, that's how the Twins got him from, I think, the Astros. That's an obvious success story. Back in the day when the Rule 5 draft was a little bit different, Roberto Clemente got taken by the Pirates from the Dodgers. That's why Roberto Clemente was a Pirate and not a Dodger. Things were a little different back then, but similar concept anyway. And so it's not very often, and the Dodgers almost never take anybody in the Rule 5 draft. The Rule 5 draft is usually bad teams taking players from good teams. We had an instance several years ago when the Padres, they took 3 guys in the Rule 5 draft who absolutely were not ready for the big leagues. But so this would have been before the 2017 season. And the Padres are like, well, we're going to be bad. So let's take these guys in the Rule 5 draft who aren't ready, but who we'll keep them on our big league roster. And then we can send them back to the minors the next year. So you have a guy like Luis Torrens, who was taken by the Padres before the 2017 season at the end of 2016 in the Rule 5 draft, added to the big league roster, played 56 games for the 2017 Padres, was terrible. He had an OPS plus of 22. And then the year after being in the big leagues, I believe he spent the next year in my hometown of Lake Elsinore, which is back then was high A. Let's see. 2018. Yes, Luis Torrens went to Lake Elsinore and played 122 games for the Storm and was a decent hitter and eventually got back to the big leagues. Never was what the Padres hoped they were getting, but that's kind of what they did. And I'm trying to remember who the other 2 were. I know they had 3 that year. Luis Torrens is the one who sticks out in my mind, I think, because it was so weird to see a guy playing in the big leagues one year and then playing in high A in my hometown the next year. But there was Yeah, it's tough to tell. They have so many. They had some bad players on that team, but that's kind of how the Rule 5 draft works. It's a way, the purpose from the player standpoint is so that a team can't just stash all their guys in the minor leagues until they need them. The minor leaguers need to have some way of getting out of an organization that's not ever going to promote them to the big leagues. And so the Dodgers never take anybody in the Rule 5 draft. They often have players taken from them. And like I said, the way to protect against that is to put guys on the 40-man roster. And so when we look at who the Dodgers might need to protect this year, there's fewer names than there have been in the past. There's a lot of names, fewer big names. And so you've got a guy like Austin Gauthier, who had a solid season at AAA this last year and probably will get taken. He is probably a decent backup infielder for some team. I don't know if the Dodgers have room for him. But so he's one. They might protect him, or else he probably will get taken. You have guys who, like Ben Harris, left-handed pitcher. We saw him pitch in spring training last year. He's got some tools, hasn't put it together, hasn't pitched super well in the minors. So Jake Vogel, great speed, definitely not ready for the big leagues, but maybe somebody who sees that speed tool and figures, well, we're going to be bad. Let's use him as a pinch runner, and then he'll be in our organization. But kind of, for me, almost the more interesting part this year for the Dodgers is the list of guys who were eligible last year who the Dodgers didn't protect. Once you're eligible, you remain eligible. And so all these guys are still eligible, and some of them might actually be more in danger of being taken. You got the two third basemen, Andre Lipsius and Cody Hosey, both of whom played well at AAA this year, both of whom it's hard to see them getting an opportunity with the Dodgers. So maybe they get taken. But also, I was thinking about this today, like the value a guy has a team. If the Dodgers don't protect a guy and he gets taken in the Rule 5 draft, they lose him for nothing. And so they're probably looking at, okay, do we think Cody Hosey has trade value, for example? And the reason there might be trade value would be, if a team trades for Cody Hosey, they have to put him on the 40-man roster. Well, if the Dodgers put him on the 40-man roster and then trade him, he's on the 40-man roster, but then he has three options, so he can be sent to the minors. Whereas if they take him in the Rule 5 draft, he can't be sent to the minors. So guys like Hosey and Lipsius might have more value, might have enough trade value to add them to the 40-man roster and then look to trade them. The Dodgers currently have three open spots on their 40-man roster. One of those, Connor Brogdon, the Dodgers, they put him through waivers. He cleared waivers, so they outrighted him to the minors and basically outrighted him off the 40-man roster. He elected free agency, so he's no longer in the organization. So they have three spots. They have another spot or two, guys who they could do the same kind of thing. You've still got Zach Logue, who is not a big league pitcher, but he's on the Dodgers 40-man roster, those kind of things. So they could make a little bit more room. Another guy, Carlos Duran, a guy who was eligible last year, he was similar boat to Edgardo Henriquez. They both got hurt around the same time. They both missed the whole 2022 season, 2023 season. They both missed the 2023 season after getting hurt in 2022. And just like Henriquez, Duran wasn't protected last year for the Rule 5 draft and wasn't taken. Henriquez obviously is now on the Dodgers 40-man roster. Duran is a guy with really good stuff, and he might, now that he is a year removed from his injury, the Dodgers might feel a need to protect him. On the other hand, he didn't get taken last year, and he had a 13, I guess he only pitched one inning in AAA. He was solid in AA, 3.05 ERA in Tulsa, 4.61 ERA with Cucamonga this year. He pitched at three levels. Big strikeout rates. And so maybe he's a guy they protect, or maybe they risk their luck. Carlos Duran is a guy I could definitely see getting taken by a team that isn't necessarily playing for a World Series next year, could use him in the bullpen, and then he's in their organization. He's still young. He's only 23 years old. If I had to guess, I would guess that Duran gets one of those spots because the Dodgers always have spots in the bullpen going through. Carlos Duran is better than Zach Logue. I'll put it that way. And so, you know what? If it takes Zach Logue's roster spot to protect Carlos Duran, go for it. Other guys who were eligible last year and didn't get taken. Jose Ramos, who used to get lumped together with Andy Pages, and kind of Andy Pages light. Hyun-Il Choi, who used to be, he was the Dodgers minor league pitcher of the year a couple of years ago, hasn't progressed like they had hoped. So a few names like that. In the end, you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21-ish guys who were eligible last year and weren't taken, and then another 13 or 14 this year. So there's 35-ish guys for the Dodgers to choose from. Do we want to use a 40-man roster spot on these guys? Then there's free agency. Dodgers, it's not like they're just going to, well, you have 3 open spots. Let's protect 3 guys because still trying to re-sign Teoscar Hernandez and sign Blake Snell or whoever it is, sign Walker Buehler. All those guys are going to need 40-man roster spots too. So there's a lot that goes into this. Tuesday is the day we will find out. That's the day they have to protect these guys. The Rule 5 draft isn't until the winter meetings next month, but Tuesday is the day that the Dodgers have to protect these guys from the Rule 5 draft by adding them to the 40-man roster. So that'll be an interesting thing. Obviously, we'll talk about that after it happens, what names actually made the list, but there are a lot of possibilities there, a lot of interesting stuff. This week, we have awards coming. Shohei Ohtani will officially win his MVP award. I'm sure we'll dig into that. We'll find out where Dave Roberts finished in the Manager of the Year voting. We know he wasn't in the top 3. We'll find out, down ballot votes for Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez in the MVP voting. We'll see if any Dodgers got any Cy Young voting. All that. It'll be a lot to talk about this week. That's going to do it for me for today. Thanks for being here with me. Nice, fun Sunday evening episode. Vince and I should be back together the rest of this week. I think we'll try to go live as often as possible, and we will talk about all that stuff, awards, Rule 5 protections, all that stuff, and any news that comes up. Hopefully at least some good, juicy rumors to dig into. Either way, we will be here with you. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening so that you never miss an episode. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. Be sure to go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and both of our DMs are open there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We will talk to you tomorrow.